Welcome back, grade 5s. This is Unit 8, Lesson 3. We're talking about reflections. So for this lesson, I've got the L shape that you might see out of a Tetris game, and I'm going to use this purple dotted line to represent our mirror, or our line of reflection. That's what the mathematicians call it. So if I put our line of reflection right up next to this L shape, I'm going to flip our image over. Is this a reflected image? It's not. I haven't reflected it. I've actually translated it over too, like I did in last lesson, but I haven't reflected. A reflected image should actually look like the opposite shape, like this, okay? And you know you've done something right, you know you've done everything right on your reflected image if you measure from any point on the reflected image. So in this case, I'm measuring from right here to the mirror. It's 1 square away. It should be the exact same, but opposite on the other side. This square is 1 square to the left of the mirror. Okay, same up here, 1 space or 1 square and 1 square. So we know that we've reflected properly. And you can look at it, if you look at both shapes together, they look like a symmetrical image. That's another way to know that you've reflected properly. Okay, now if you don't have a fancy reflect tool because you're not working on the computer, you're drawing, how can you draw out a reflected image? What I'm going to do, and you can do this as well, is I'm going to put a little circle on every single corner of my shape. I can measure and put my new dots on the other side. I'm going to do them in a different color. I'm going to do them in green. So for example, this top right corner is 1 square away. I'm going to draw it 1 square away from the mirror over here, and I've got my new corner. This one's 2 squares away. I'm going to put it right here. These two are touching, so that's really simple. They're still going to be touching. There's 0 squares away. You can think of it that way. This one's 1 square away up here. And this one on this line is 2 squares away, so I'm going to put it right there. And the last step will just be to connect all these lines. I'm going to just draw all these corners. I'm going to create a line in between all those corners, and you will have created a reflection of the image. What about if you have a mirror that's not horizontal, it's instead diagonal? Okay, let's try that out. So I'm just going to move this mirror to a diagonal line, like so. Now, to make your life easier, I would recommend, if you're doing a diagonal line, especially, you can technically do any angle. I would do a 45-degree angle. So if you remember, perpendicular was 90 degrees, 45 is halfway. And you'll know it's 45 because it goes through the corner of every single one of these squares on my grid. That's going to make your life a lot easier for reflecting. Like I said, you can reflect any angle, but it will get more difficult at different angles. So we're going to do a 45-degree angle here. I think I stretched it a little bit. There you go. That's going to be a reflected image. And your mind can kind of tell you. Your mind's pretty smart. Your mind can tell you if it's right when you look at it. You can say, oh yeah, if I tilt my head, it looks symmetrical. I know that that's correct. But before you see it, sometimes it can be easy to be tricked by different shapes or not know exactly how to turn this thing. So again, we can do our corner method, but it is going to be a little bit harder on a diagonal. And to be honest, sometimes I get a little tricked up by it as well. So I might make a mistake here. Let's try it out. It's going to start the same way. I'm going to put a red dot on every single one of my 6 corners. Okay, and I'm going to take them one at a time and make green dots on the other side. The ones that are touching the line are going to stay in the same spot. Okay, this one is only half a square away from the line. I know that it's going to go up here. Okay, same thing with this one. It's going to go over here. This one is a full line, a full square, or a full square to the right and up. Right and up, it's going to go over here. This one is a full 2 squares away, so it's going to go over here. And this last one is a full 1 square away. It's going to go right here. There you go. So I've created now my reflected image just with the corners. I'm going to draw with my lines to connect them. And there you go. You now have the L shape that's reflected diagonally up here. And so that's how you can do it if you're drawing. The last thing I wanted to show you is that you can actually reflect. Your mirror doesn't have to be touching your object like it was in those 2 examples. You can put the mirror anywhere you want. Again, if you're working on grid paper like I am right now, it's best if you put the mirror on one of the lines because otherwise it gets a little bit harder. Let's say here, put the shape down here. So what's that going to look like? I'm not going to draw the points out for this one, but you could easily do that as well. So obviously it's going to go like this, but you'll notice this one up here is only 1 space away from the mirror, and this one's 2 spaces away from the mirror. I'm gonna move it up 1, like that, and there you go. So if you move your mirror further away from your object, your reflected image has to move further away from the mirror too. And when you draw point by point with that other method that I showed you, that will happen automatically. Okay, so that is horizontal, vertical, and diagonal reflections, and that should help you with the workbook and textbook questions for today. Thanks, class.